since the prison matrons strictly enforced the silence rule. Their fingers jerked spasmodically as they sewed buttons onto cards, the partial penance they paid for prostitution, public drunkenness, theft, and murder. Sunlight streamed in from a line of windows and fell onto the tables, and at least once during the shift, each one gazed through the bars at the world on the other side of the whitewashed brick wall. The inmates all wore the same prison-issue garb, but they all took different paths into this room. Although serious offenders once known in the papers as Pope, Eccles, Roberts, and Lawrence had swapped their surnames for inmate numbers and had disappeared from the public eye behind layers of brick and iron, they remained subjects of curiosity for years after the papers documenting their crimes had yellowed. Nellie Pope, who conspired to murder her husband in 1895, frowned as a matron led a reporter into the factory. The matron thought it best to walk past the volatile Pope, known to use physical violence if she felt threatened. A head taller than the other inmates, the statuesque Pope was an intimidating and frightening figure, best left alone. Tucked into one corner of the room, Fanny Eccles, whose murder of her husband 15 years earlier led to a life sentence, toiled away at the buttons. The writer described Eccles as a buxom, good-natured-looking colored woman. Next to Eccles sat convicted thief Dora Roberts. Dora and her husband, Walter, robbed a Champlain Street saloon owner of $200. A constable in the right place at the right time caught Dora with her hand in the cookie jar when, as he chased her out of the saloon, she dropped a roll of stolen greenbacks into a spittoon. Alice Lawrence, who received 20 years for conspiring to murder her husband in Holland, raised her head and watched as the reporter slowly passed her bench. When their eyes met, Lawrence felt a pang of shame and quickly dropped her head. Most of the women's wing residents were serving brief sentences for any number of minor offenses, many of them leaving the house only to return later for identical convictions. The matron led the reporter to a table where two gray heads bobbed in rhythm with their hands. Both women had done so many stints in the house for drunk and disorderly convictions that they considered it home. The matron pointed to one of them. "That's Mary Scanlon at the end." When she heard her name, Scanlon glanced at the writer just long enough to reveal a face crisscrossed with deeply etched furrows and skin the color and texture of an old paper bag. One side of her mouth curled up in a half-hearted attempt at a smile. "She's an old offender," the matron noted. "Who's that?" The writer pointed at the woman sitting next to Scanlon. "Oh, that's Ellen Bushy. This is her home. Poor Ellen." Scanlon and Bushy had plenty of company. A majority of the house's female residents served short-term sentences for public intoxication. Women such as Minerva Maxwell and Lizzie Lawson, who was once described as a colored maiden of 31 summers, earned 30 days each as tipplers. Murderers like Nellie Pope fascinated the writer, but something about Scanlon and Bushy absolutely captivated her. In her article, she pointed out the double standard prevalent in turn-of-the-century law enforcement. In the Gilded Cafe, the man in the dress suit drinks something to drown his sorrows, she noted. He becomes violent and smashes a window, but nothing happens to him. But it isn't so with the old gray-haired castaway. She has troubles, too, and tries to get rid of them. She begs a drink somewhere and then crawls off into the alley. The policeman finds her, rings up the patrol wagon, and off she goes to jail. The tone of the unnamed reporter's article and the mentioning of this she pays, he doesn't pay double standard suggest the Free Press writer was a woman with an eye for social reform. She had a point. Many of the women carding buttons in the prison factory that sunny afternoon in 1899 ended up inside the prison after convictions for public drunkenness. Other repeat offenders included shoplifters and liquor law violators, selling alcohol without a license, running a blind pig, an unlicensed saloon, or selling on a Sunday. The residents of this house were the wicked women of Detroit. The legal system that brought them to the house was much different than its 21st century descendant. To fully understand their stories, it becomes necessary to examine law and order of yesteryear, particularly